Don't stop. Can you cancel recording?
Doing it. Welcome back with coffee. I did not indulge in changing my coat just to throw you off balance a little bit, just so you know.
Go ahead, poke the autist. I understand.
So I'm going to reintroduce this because I said this. I said it is natural that those individuals least able to produce also reproduce least, which I call the fading trailing edge of the population.
Yeah.
And Kurt said, this is a naturalistic fallacy. And so now he's explaining the naturalistic fallacy to me so that I can indoctrinate myself a little further down the rabbit hole.
Well, it's like the common example is the difference between Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, the natural state of man. Well, just because it's natural, I mean, we used to kill each other with abandon, right? That's natural. We don't have to do it, though.
Not very civil, however.
I mean, you know, sometime read about 10th century or 11th century manners. Well, no, it's later. It's 14th century table manners.
Yeah.
And then jump ahead to 17th century table manners.
Okay.
They're fucking horrible.
Right.
Right. Now, they're natural.
Wait, I have to interject now because it's a fashion thing, okay? So why are there buttons there? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You put it on the officer's clothes so they don't do this.
But they're no. So the answer being, of course, that just because it's natural doesn't mean it's inalterable. In other words, we can generally train people to be better than they are. In other words, many behaviors can be trained. Not all behaviors can be trained, right? Many behaviors can be trained. Not all behaviors can be trained. Well, it's the same thing, but however, genetics, our behaviors can be trained, but our genetics can't be.
That's correct.
And so this gets into the problem of which continues the cabling discussion from our previous video, which is that the reason people are in different classes is quality of, now people would think it's intelligence, it's not, but it's quality of your genetics, right? In other words, all mutation is random. Almost very little random mutation is beneficial. Non-beneficial traits end up in the lower classes, right? Right. And so defects accumulate in lower classes. Why? Because defects affect performance. And so it's not so much that the middle and upper classes are better, it's that they're not worse.
Right.
Right. And so it's the accumulation of defects. And so
processing errors.
Huh?
Processing errors.
Processing and behavioral errors. I mean, it's like that thing of, well, you know, we tend to separate intelligence as if it's a separate personality trait. And I just combined it into personality traits.
Oh, I have to stop.
But you could be an intelligent psychopath. You know, I mean,
they're the scariest kind, right?
Yeah. And you could be a stupid psychopath.
It kind of gets caught, right?
You could be a conscientious, you know, I don't know, can you be conscientious? Yeah, you can be a conscientious psychopath. Anyway, so you have these traits, right? All right. And then there's those are our personality traits, and those we tend to keep sanitized because they're for polite conversation. So they're, you know, the big five plus intelligence. And then there are the antisocial behaviors, right? Which are the negative traits nobody talks about, right?
Wait, what? The antisocial behaviors. Is there a name for them?
Antisocial behaviors.
Okay.
And they fall into personality defects.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right. And so there's a lot there in that spectrum. You can be lucky and have a high intelligence, high conscientiousness, low agreeableness, low neuroticism, and basically no antisocial behavior, and demonstrate no tendency for antisocial behaviors, right? Or you could be the opposite. You could have low intelligence, low conscientiousness, high neuroticism, and demonstrate frequent antisocial behaviors. Now, people can't think of it this way, but that's just defect. That's neurological defect. How do you get neurological defects? Well, you're born with them. You you grow them, or you're subject to trauma, which expresses them, right? I mean, these are things that any medical or scientific professional knows. You can be born with them, you can develop them, or you can be forced into them. Right? Trauma being a pretty horrible thing. Speaking as someone who's had quite a bit of it. So all these things happen, but those things tend to distribute, the genetic predisposition for those things tends to migrate down into the below them, what we call the middle class. And we're middle class in America, we tend to think of as income, but middle class means you're capable of being responsible for yourself, others, in some form of capital. Or middle class means you can manage yourself, manage your family, own a home, and hopefully manage others.
We'll say sufficiently competent.
It's sufficient competence, but a lot of people aren't that sufficiently competent. And so, we tend to do this thing of, I mean, one of the great things is meeting criminals, meeting people with 70 IQs, meeting people who are normal, but they're actually illiterate. Meeting people from I like this, meeting people from a society that's primitive, right? Right? There's nothing wrong with them, but they don't have programming, right? Criminals, there's something fucking wrong with them. Almost all of them. They're busted people, right? People who aren't very smart, I mean, they can be good or they cannot be good natured, right? But that doesn't mean they can be competent in anything. I tell the story about the guy who worked in the car cleaning business at a dealership in New Jersey, right? He's a black guy, tall, attractive, good manners. There's nothing fucking wrong with this guy. He just can't learn. He tries community college, reading books, whatever, and it's work. But he never fucking gives up. That guy's going to be fine by the time he's 40. He'll be a good citizen. But he has every personality trait necessary except for IQ. So we don't, but the thing is, it's not like you can just make this blanket measurement of everybody below 95 is fucking dead weight, right? Well, it's not really true. There are people down in 83 who are great people to be around. They just can't do complex tasks.
Right.
There are people that I know plenty of them who are 140s and above like me, who they really need to be removed from the population because they're really bad people, they're dangerous, and they are cunning enough to get away with it. Right? So it's not like that. But in general, the inability to, in other words, those people, the people that are at the top, they still can produce in other words, they don't produce costs, right? I mean, they're able to support themselves. The problem with people at the bottom is that when you have nothing else to do but reproduce, you do, right? They have nothing invested. Once you can tolerate being poor, you can't have the ability to reproduce. Because your point is, you've got to not be able to tolerate being poor in order to reproduce, right? Because that's what happens. They just become sunk costs.
All right, now I must digress again here, just to reinforce our habit of encouraging people to make comments that we can read and reflect upon and respond to on occasion, right? I had
So
to
am I
say,
ever gonna, go ahead?
I had to introduce that because I forgot to do it before we got started again. So I had to do it as we're trying to reinforce our habit here. All right.
We could do the thing of subscribe, like, and comment.
Oh my God. Right.
Hate that
Okay.
shit.
There you
I
have it.
do want to answer questions though, if they're out there, and don't be shy about asking them. That's the
No,
whole
though
thing.
I really enjoy the comments because it's like get some interesting reflections on what is going on in the consciousness of the people observing the show.
Yeah, because we have a lot more viewers. I didn't realize how many viewers we have. I thought it was just repeats. It's not. We have more viewers than I thought, and
Really?
the number of people who ask questions is small.
It's very, very limited.
Yeah.
Very good.
Anyway, so what I wanted to get across there is, am I ever going to get out of being called a Nazi? I don't know.
I don't think so. And I like this. It's like this to me. I'm preparing my white paper for the middle of the left. Okay, and I already have heard the word cross the lips of the people who had to eat them back, because I'm like, that's just it's non-starter. It doesn't mean anything in this context. That is not there. There's no Nazis. You're just making noises, and it's this verbal flatulence must stop. It's impolite, and it is not productive, and it is not properly engaging for a polite conversation. I just made you the host.
Yeah, but it's sort of, even then, it's like, I'll say National Socialism, right?
No, you won't.
No, I mean, if I say that, then I'm of course referring to the economic policy that was demonstrated in France, Italy, and Germany, right? In other words, it's just economics, right? It's the fact that that's all it is, right? So the problem is that sounds like Nazi too.
I know.
Well, Nazi is like a fucking they hate it when I say it. The Nazis hate me, right? They fucking hate me. Because I call them out all the time. You guys are fucking idiots, right? It's a shitty religion. It was best or whatever. It teaches you to put ideology over empiricism. And I'm just a rule of law, economics, and testimony guy.
A boring middle right guy.
Just I don't throw something out because if some bunch of people have 20 ideas and 3 of them are good, I don't dismiss the 3 bad ideas. I've spent a lot of time in post-communist Europe, right? Some of the things the communists did were fucking awesome. The most of them were not, but some of them, especially how you treat other people with respect, that was not bad. It was beautiful. I still like it. You look at the communist product for making housing complexes and getting people so they could have actual apartments. That was great. I mean, and the difference is, yeah, they might turn into slums there, some of them, but of course not all of them did, because they're freaking boring white people living in them, right? I mean, it's just, they have duty. So, I mean, the problem is I can find good in every political model, social democracy, classical liberalism, fascism, communism, national socialism. I can find good in every model. You just can't treat them as ideologies, right? You teach them. I look at these things as collection of technologies. Right. And so there's always some technology in some model that is worthy of analysis. The problem is your expectation that human behavior can be unified, right, sufficiently or produced by incentives to bring about those outcomes. To me, I think I've done that, but I've done it through prohibiting bad things rather than trying to make people believe silly shit.
There you have it.
So
Thank
anyway,
I had to say that. I made you the host while you were,
rambling.
I wouldn't say that, and I didn't actually.
Yeah, you would.
I might, but not on recording. So we're going to get back to work on the law, the nuts and bolts.
All right. I'm
Wait.
going to try to not screw today up, and I've tried to make sure I'm prepared.
Good job.
And let's hope I don't screw it up.
You'll be do fine.
You think so?
Yes, sir.
You're encouraging.
That's right.
Pat the child on the head before you send him off the stage.
It is just I'm a sheepdog. That's my job. Just keep him in line. Keep focusing. There we go. Content of the natural law.
All right. So if you remember where we were, we worked our way from ethics all the way up to what makes a law, what makes it legitimate, what are the properties of a legitimate law. Then we said, what is the format of a law? Within the format, we said, well, we would have to list it would consist of propositions that concluded obligations, rights, and alienations. Then we said, what would be necessary to bring this about? Where is it? Okay, so we're working through it. This is okay. Well, what does the insurer mean? We walk through with the insurers. What are the requirements for the obligations? What rights and alienations? What do those terms mean in the context of the insurers? We would said, how would we produce that insurance, right? Which is a contract.
I have to.
Go ahead.
The inalienations brought forth a question which came to my attention, which was not asked yet.
I think I corrected it.
Oh, well.
Go ahead.
No, it turned it into a violation is what the point was. You made inalienability a violation.
I forgot to put the word here.
Okay.
I forgot prohibition. I just said the violation. Right. So inalienability is a violation rather than inability is a prohibition on a violation. I'd forgotten the word prohibition.
Very good. Okay, good.
Right.
Sorry.
I'm did that because I'm trying to make these three sentences, these three paragraphs be as close
Right.
as possible to each other.
Right.
That usually requires a couple of iterations to get right. So, we have to produce what are those things? The first thing we have to produce is insurance, right? And these are the only way to produce insurance is right to bear arms, right? So that's insurance. Now we have to say, well, what is the test of self-determination?
Okay.
Right? Then what's the test of sovereignty? What's the test of reciprocity? And then how do we resolve disputes against insurance, self-determination, reciprocity? And then how do we produce commons within it? I don't necessarily know what the order of these two should be in. I kept these together, right? Because I thought they were the right sequence. And I think it's only once you can resolve disputes that you can then produce a commons and the production of
Yep.
And I think what is this one? What is that? Is that a Georgia 12-point gold? Right. Well, the question is, if you add this one. I don't know if that goes there or not, but I call it.
A generational, right? It's a generational function, right?
Right. Because what happens is we take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no,
Which is the evolutionary function is contained in that last bit. That is
correct.
defines the evolutionary function of the society.
Yeah. So this is my problem. I think it's probably this order. Because the reason is that commons, as we mean it here, once you've produced sovereignty, which means defense, we produce, we can produce goods, services, information. We can produce families, and once we have families, the purpose of commons is to reduce the need for income of each family by investing in a commons that produces shared returns. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Say yes or no.
I said yes. I think that the production of dispute resolution comes after the production of goods, services, and information, however, but you know, it's okay.
Yeah, I think I like going from insurance, right?
Okay,
Where's insurance?
you were there. There it is.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
Right, so then we go to what is required. How do we produce it? Which is the right to the obligation, in other words, the obligation insured. Then how do we know it's self-determination by self-determined means? Then how do we know what sovereignty is? And how do we know what reciprocity is? To display word indeed. The hard one is
that works.
huh?
That works. That organization works.
Right. And so once we have that, then we get to, okay, here's then how to resolve disputes over these things.
Yes.
And then once we know how we resolve disputes, we've answered the via negativa, leaving the via positiva possible.
Okay.
I think that's the right order to put it in. I get some feedback is like that, like they think I've read so many law books and there's nothing this clear anywhere. And I keep thinking somebody else must have done this. And
here we are doing it.
And it's just common sense, really. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can do this. So we're gonna work through each of these.
Right.
All right. Now, just want to see if which one I want to do first. See if I can find this out. 1 second here. I want to do it without going into the.
Without what?
I'm trying to figure out how to say it and do it nicely. We call self-determination by a lot of words. Sovereignty, reciprocity, sovereignty, liberty.
Right.
We use those 3 words.
I want to interject here. These are the words the left likes to call dog whistle words.
Well, that's because the left wants to claim a right to the time labor and resources of others.
You didn't put the left in there. There you go. Be left alone.
Right? So that's the fundamental problem. I'm glad they think it's a dog whistle.
Well, it's the fact is the Canadians actually made it so they stated freedom is such a word. It's like it's an indicator of sociopathology in their mind, in their statement. Like, wow, all but criminality. Okay. Consumption, right?
So here's the thing.
There's a thing here. There's a it goes back to the initial function of life, or the order of that comes from that level of complexity that is life, which is do not lose, gain, right? For the cell, do not lose, gain, and reproduce, persist by not losing and gaining. And so that persists in this level of human organizational processing, which is the right wants to do not lose and gain, and the left wants to gain and not lose. And it's a different order. There's something there that I don't know how to express it better than
Is
that.
that they don't want to be left behind. It's just the instinct of the mother not to be left behind, the instinct of the weak not to be left behind, because we're hunter-gatherers and we migratory hunter-gatherers. There's a terrible fear of being left behind. So what you would do to commit suicide when you're old is you would stay behind. Right? What mothers would do is abandon their children, leave them behind. It's natural. Or expose their infants.
Okay.
So it's a normal response. So the problem is that what does self-determined by self-determined means? What does that mean?
Right.
I don't know how to convert it to any other terms. I only know how to express it
That's it.
as these things. I only know how to express it as sovereignty and reciprocity.
Okay.
Right now, hold on. What this really means is I'm in control of my own life. Right? That's what it means.
Pursuit of happiness, right?
Right? No other. That's what it means. Now, how do you make this possible? That's what. The question is how. Right? So the problem is you have to be able to acquire. Oh, hell. right?
Right.
So the problem is, why do I have responsibility to you? In other words, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to avoid putting in here the truth.
Okay, let's start there then. That's it. What truth are we trying to avoid, Kurt?
Oh,
I can help you with your evasive maneuvers. Oh my, we're back to that.
yeah. You asked me why I was trying to avoid it.
It's an ethical question, right?
Right. So do we have any? Subjective?
That's a very interesting point to put this in here. It's just interesting to me.
In other words, there's a subjective difference in value to one another.
What? Right?
Right. So how do we test it?
What's the test? What are we testing? Of sovereignty?
Well, we're trying to say, what's the demand for self-determination?
It's the demand is, that's quite interesting. Demand appears to be related to the use of the individual's native processing power, intelligence to come up with the answer for the problem of life for his own purposes, right?
Yeah.
It's autonomy in life, in cooperation with others, so not doing bad things, because that affords us the greatest opportunities to gain, right?
Well, what we're trying to say, yeah, I mean, it's always a problem solving for the via positiva, because now you've created all these opportunities for people to lie, cheat, and deceive. So I'm trying to produce the via negativa, which is okay, what's the causal chain, right? So if you have a degree of agency autonomy in life, right, then you could say utility
Right.
right? So you may lack agency or not. You may have agency.
Right. I would
Go ahead.
impose, I would put impose instead of demand
Yep.
costs. It's nice.
So the problem is that everybody talks like they're moral or not, but really when you look at it, what's happening is everyone in other words, the squirrel, I think it's a squirrel or chipmunk, I can't remember. I think it's a squirrel. Can't tell the difference.
So like
Right.
so suggests a social stratification.
Correct. So the problem I'm trying to get at here is that we're all conducting this accounting. Our moral instinct is just accounting.
So yeah, social accounting system of like social value. It's an intrinsic social. What do they have in China? Social accounting system.
Social credit system.
That's the internal social credit system, right? Intrinsic and unavoidable, right?
I mean, the problem is why do we have that accounting system?
It's for social organization. God put it in there because it's like that makes it work.
To suppress parasitism. That's why we have it.
Right.
In other words, cooperation is only possible with suppression of parasitism.
I want you to put social in there.
I don't understand social.
Social parasitism. It's social parasitism because it's like it's a interpersonal. Okay, there you go. I like that.
So how do we?
It's how humans are built. Humans have to have that because we cooperate and gain benefit from cooperation.
In other words, suppression, parasitism, including altruistic punishment, the means by which we maintain the utility of cooperation, devolving without devolving. It's important.
Well, you missed a word there. But means by which at the first sentence before the end. Yeah. Thank you.
So in other words, So this leads to
right? So
it's what's happening is like I always say, the universe can't remember.
right.
Can't trade or invest. We can remember, so we can trade and invest in future trades at the cost of preserving a positive balance. That make sense?
Yes.
So this is a really simple graph of supply demand. The problem is that each
Oh, that's quite interesting.
so trust. All right. So that's the economics of it, right? So that's the demand for self-determination is born by the need to create cooperation on one hand and to maintain self-preservation and reproduction on the other.
Fix
Okay,
that
so
word up there on the one end. Second line.
Why are these words not coming out of my finger? I wonder if there's.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Your brain is arcing ahead to the next word, apparently.
It's either that or I'm not hitting the keys hard enough, which is also possible. All right. So
what you said, a thing that I want to reflect on quickly, which is that people walk around with a moral mark that is their willingness to cooperate, like projecting the cost of doing trades with them or something like that.
yeah, so I'll put it here. Well, morality. We each intuit that morality consists of our moral bias in our favor. So all of us
All right, we are good.
with an advertisement
Right. Yeah. Is it interesting? That parenthetical facial expression, behavior, dress, signal, speech. In medicine, we call habitus.
what do you call it?
Habitus. That's nice.
I have to look it up, make sure I can use that word.
Oh, you can. You have it on another screen, I think.
I do.
No, I know. I thought you have so many screens. I'm making fun. I thought you were looking at you were looking it up right now. That's okay.
I just looked it up. I can use it. Okay, so the problem is that we can't estimate others' costs. Right? We can't always do that.
No,
So
we're not good at it, and the
Right.
parasites are good at hiding it.
Yes. And so you have all these problems of, so this is the problem of politics, is that and the social media has exacerbated it. Oh, actually, Media exacerbated it. Social media exacerbated it worse, which is that like, just like publishers tended to qualify a book before it was published.
Right.
Because they estimated the market demand for this would work. Nobody's performing the publisher's curatorial function on speech. And so we have, one of the things we're doing is we're using a law to curate, to help people curate what kind of information makes it into the commons. So it's perfectly fine to say, I'm only willing to cooperate with people who share these interests with me. That's fine. But at some point you have to realize we're covering this entire triangular spectrum of time and space. And only our range of cooperation is limited. It's only through markets where we share with people on means rather than ends that makes possible cooperation across people who desire different ends. How did I just say that?
I had to write down the timestamp because I can't say it momentarily. The sentence there, however, there's a tolerable element that I would like you to insert in there. It's what we are willing to tolerate. Like, we cooperate with intolerable within the, it's interesting. That's quite interesting. Oh. Are you square on that one?
Yeah, what happened? What's the matter?
Awesome, man. It's like this. It's like the paragraph that begins with so is markets allow the cooperative settlement of differences or cooperative settlement between people that are intolerable to one another.
Settlement,
I'm
cooperation.
mutually intolerable. That's interesting to me. That was the first one. There's the next paragraph inspired the premise that there's a go okay. That's in terms of moral biases.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. There should be an apostrophe in that and others.
Others.
Thank you.
So
That was wonderful. There's a another element there, which is this last paragraph. It defines the scale of cooperative potential of the polity.
the coop. No, I mean that the this is why you need a lot of small polities. Or it might actually be that the higher the competency, competency.
Thank you. I don't like this. Like,
Oh, the median, the polity is greater, the greater the demand for a smaller the lower the competency of the median polity, the greater the demand for a larger polity.
that's quite interesting.
This is why this is heard. This is pack.
Yeah.
And this is what we see, of course. We see this as the higher a group gets agency, the more independence they want. Because what's forever happening is the competent seek to leave behind the dead weight, incompetent, and the incompetent seek to
Yoke.
yoke the competent.
That's beautiful. And now I have to introduce a Hebrew word. The ale, ill. Ill is yoke. There you have it.
Poetic languages.
There you have it. It's like it says a lot, and it's the yoke is the problem because they're trying to throw the yoke on the competent, and the yoke is what the competent seeks to shirk, right?
Yeah. So this falls into the 5 questions
Oh,
of philosophy.
very good. Right on time, right?
Mm-hmm. And that is, what is the first, in other words, here's the proof. This is essentially the proof, right? What's the first question of philosophy? Why don't commit suicide? Well, we call that personal philosophy, right? Oh, I forgot the rest of the fucking thing. Excuse me.
Oh.
All right. So that's why don't you commit suicide? Well, it's a really interesting question because we don't. Why don't we? I mean, it makes no. Why would you keep? Why would we stay? People say it's instinct, but what is that instinct? Right. It's the opportunity.
It goes to the chick. Why did the chicken cross the road question, right? And I have the answer to that. That's different than what you might imagine. And it is a psychological question, right? Why did the chicken cross the road?
I'm afraid.
I know, right? It goes like this, because it was the best thing the chicken could do at the moment.
Yes, well,
and it's demonstrably true, right? It's unavoidable fact. It's a fact. The chicken did it because it was the best thing the chicken could do at the moment. And it's like, suicide is not the best thing to do at the moment. That's the only reason.
It's opportunity.
That's it.
The second question is, well, once I've dealt with the question of personal philosophy, I'm always trying to acquire something. It might just be life, it might be time, it might be feelings, who knows, but you're trying to acquire something. And they hate that, right? They can't stand the fact that all behavior is reducible to acquisition, because that means all behaviors are reducible to self-interest, right? And that most of what they're doing is they're investing heavily in others for the purpose of advancing their self-interest. They just like the fact that by mutual investment in others and the mutual pursuit of self-interest, they do find the fact that they've created more opportunities. So the second question is, why engage in cooperation rather than free-riding parasitism and predation? Well, it's because many hands make light work. It's the opportunity to acquire more. Besides, other people tend to do nasty things to you, like kill you and flay your skin and make things like skull pyramids. The third question is, and one of the group, so this is you in relation to others. This is your group. Why engage in cooperation with others rather than free-riding parasitism and predation? It's a question of politics. The answer is the opportunity to acquire more and greater safety. To acquire more and greater safety. To acquire more and greater safety.
Right, and there's loss prevention in there as well. It's opportunity to acquire and prevent loss.
Okay, sure. The fourth question group has to answer is, how should we organize our people with myths, arguments, and rules to survive and prosper in competition from nature and man? That's our group evolutionary strategy. So why do we do that? The opportunity to acquire and greater safety at less neural cost, right? And the last question of group A, what are the limits of tolerance for life? In other words, philosophy, right? For ethics, others, for politics, and for group evolutionary strategy, before we resort to suicide, separation, free riding, parasitism, predation, and condition of victimhood. That is the question of limits, what I call defection, or
Wow.
reciprocity within the limits of proportionality. And of course, the answer to all 5 of these questions, that the persistence of opportunities of existence, of returns on cooperation, and the returns on the production of commons are preferable to suicide, separation, free riding, parasitism, predation, and the condition of victimhood. Conversely, resistance, violence, feud, insurrection, revolution, civil war, warfare, and genocide are preferable to submission, to undermining of that cooperation. They are hindering of cooperation, parasitism, and predation. So we organize to make this easier. We organize, right? Individual, organizing by ethics, organizing by politics, organizing by group evolution history, all within limits. We organize into alliances of various kinds, families, clans, tribes, nations, territories, villages, cities, and polities. And we cooperate for the defense, preservation, persistence, reproduction, satisfaction, and development at all within limits. So, of course, what happens is that all organizations will consist of members trying to maximize their take while minimizing their cost, which leads to the maximization, rewriting, and rent seeking. Minimization until such organization cannot adapt to change or shock.
So ossification.
What'd you call it?
Ossification. Yep. Now I've fixed that rent seeking so that seeking is actually has a G at the end.
So in doing so, we produce and preserve those returns, where those returns result from increasing proximity number, right? I could break this into a bullet list, dividing our labors.
Yes.
Whereby we produce habits, rules of order, consisting of norms, traditions, processes, procedures, rights and obligations, and institutions of preservation and enforcement. And we can do that by accident of circumstance, dictate, or choice. And this always and everywhere seeks in the incremental suppression of parasitisms, both internal and external, thereby defending and advancing the demonstrated interests of those within, creating the requirement for survival and reproduction by the voluntary service of others, and the resulting markets for goods, services, information.
I want you to break it into bullet points because it needs to be highlighted. Because this is an important function. Now, this item, this is item D, appears to be the commons. This is interesting because it breaks down to A, B, and C are before. Yeah. And after. How about that? That's a beautiful little piece right there, man.
Now,
Because that's defining the social organizational of all human social organizations, what they must do
mhm.
and how they must function.
Yep.
There you go. That was great. Hmm. Hmm. That's it. Humans. I want to go back down to the limit again, because the defection is a failure as well, right?
What's a pretty good algorithm?
That's just nice, man.
Yeah. I don't like that that does that. I don't know how to fix that.
What is this?
This bullet
Yeah.
should be here. It shouldn't be out here, and I don't know how to. I've tried to fix it before, and every time I fix it, it fucks up something. Excuse me, it screws up something else. I'll do it here. Yeah, that's what I gotta do.
Whoa.
I've got to fix the LI. Who's what's this? But when it's the first thing undented, I don't know. I got to figure out how to do that. All right. So what we did is we defined did we define I don't know how to do this.
What is this that we're trying to do?
I'm trying to define self-determination without defining first demonstrated interests.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about this briefly. That self-determination is the natural state of an independent individual outside of a social context. A human being is autonomous and then enters into social agreements, arrangements. You're naturally sovereign. You're unavoidably
No,
sovereign.
you're not, because you can't defend yourself enough to be naturally sovereign. It's not possible. You can be autonomous in the absence of others.
Okay.
You can't be sovereign.
Until you can defend yourself.
Well, you can defend yourself against what?
Others.
You know, if 5 people come around, when there's one of you, you're not sovereign. Sovereign requires insurers. You can't be sovereign without insurers.
So there's a necessity for insurance from a larger group coming and taking advantage. So predatory behavior, right? So it requires insurance. So you have to have, right. That's good. I like that.
So this is what you're really talking about. Self-determination is a via negativa. We say it in the positive,
Right.
but it's actually via negativa. It's let me see if I can get this down here. It's a via negativa. Try to think if there's a word in the English language, couple of words in the English language that suit it. Because what's reciprocity? The absence of an incentive to retaliate. We just talk about how in the via positiva. The via positiva is, right? This is the positiva. But the via negativa, against the imposition of costs and one's maximization of opportunities for so because what is our goal? Our goal
Editorial. This is the optimum. This is not spelled correctly. And I don't like this construction. Our goal is. Well, let's say, yeah, life's goal seeks the maximization.
Let's get all the.
Okay. Hmm. Yep. Acquisition is misspelled. Up the paragraph. Oh, sorry to interrupt your flow there.
Okay.
Is there investment in there somewhere?
Should be right there. Because that's what creates a demonstrated interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, the left hates it, but it's like you start out with this stuff of, well, everything is reducible to an act of acquisition, personal interest. That doesn't mean that we don't all benefit by working together to pursue mutual interests. The whole point is that we do benefit by that. And so they're walking around trying to maximize the ability to, offer basically attention as a currency.
Okay.
Attention, care, and information as a means of identifying opportunities. It's seduction.
You're really, really ruining my outlook on humanity, man.
Isn't it horrible?
It is just like this.
You used to tease.
Wait. And then what's worse is they behave like shunned ex-lovers when you don't agree to their seduction. It's like
Exactly. It's like it's so. You used to tease me about it, but I'm like, I said it was very discouraging or humiliating or something to figure all this out.
I'm like, I want you to know the last 2 weeks have been sliding down the slippery slope of it. It's just the most awful shit ever.
It's fucking horrible.
No, wait. Oh my. I'm going to tell you a story to lighten the mood for a moment, because we've done great work today. Okay. We've done great work. So I had
You had to interject.
I had to do an interjection because this work is great. Then we'll do a recap, because I think we've done enough for the day. It's great work.
Yep.
This was to be about a human being that is my patient. Okay. And he tells me this. He says to me, he says, I didn't think I was gonna live to the age of 30. I'm like, what in hell would possess you to harbor such a thought? And he says, well, I flatlined in the ER when I was 19. I'm like, wow, what does this mean? What does that mean? And he says, I was a gangster. And he goes, he says, I had all the money, I had all the drugs, I had all the women. He says, the strippers would come to my house, pay me money to buy drugs, then use the drugs with me, and then do their act for me. When he's not, I'm like, dude's just a man. He's like, he's too much temptation, right? And so he says, so there's a cost to this, because you see the facade of the gangster is hard, right? There's a cost to this. And I'm like, he says, dealing with the people on the street was so annoying. They would be so annoying that he would call the police on himself to take a vacation from them. Right? I'm like, that was unexpected. Okay. And then he said, he's a clerk at a convenience store. And I said, how did you get out of it? And he goes, well, what happened was I went to help my grandmother. And when I was helping my grandmother, my legal troubles fell away and I didn't need to be a gangster anymore. So I just stopped. Like, wow, that was a trip. It was a human trip.
I love those. I love the guys. I love all those guys, right? They're like, I'm not afraid of this world. I'm going to own it, right? But they get there, they're like, what the fuck? I don't want.
This isn't what I want.
This isn't what I want.
Dude, it's annoying. These people are so annoying.
One of the things that I read recently was a very normal couple that went into farming, and they're trying to be all good and natural and stuff. So they went and learned from the Amish. And they doing so, they learned what the quality of life of Amish families is. They're like, we have got this all fucking wrong.
That's right, brother.
Because that's what mindfulness is. The problem is, how do you get that without the Amish stuff or the goofy underwear Mormon stuff? I mean, how do you get it without that? I mean, can I have this just because it's good? Do I have to have the crazy stuff around it?
I think that we can have it because it's good.
Yeah, let's just have it because it's good. I did some rough math yesterday because I was thinking about this. Yesterday was a very bad. Oh, you remember you talked to me yesterday. I had a very bad day yesterday, but I feel much better today. And but I was awake for a little bit, and I worked a little bit on how the Soviet method of farms worked. Right, they made sure everybody had enough. Even today, like there's a bunch. I know a couple of Russians, right, and they're like, "Dude, I'm just going to my grandparents. The grandparents have a farm. Right? It's a farm. It's small, right? I mean, it's a couple of acres, right?
Right.
But they've got enough room for an orchard and the
Nice.
vegetables and the potatoes and the chickens and the
Nice.
the whole shit, right? Right. And they got the little house. He's like, my wife and I, we just went out to live with my grandparents. My grandparents get somebody to take care of the farm,
Right.
right? And what's going to happen to us? We have plenty of food, right? We have a little money. We have plenty of food. We don't have to worry about working. I'm like, see, that's mindfulness.
That's right. It's a
You got
self-sufficiency, right?
grandma helps take care of baby. Mom's in there. Baby comes out and gets in the dirt while they're digging for potatoes. I mean, if you're trying to make a farm to make money, but if you're trying to make a farm to feed a family of 5, right? I mean, it's a X number, a couple of acres per person, right? And you just plant that stuff, and you get some chickens, and you get a cow, and you get a calf every year or something. I mean, life is pretty easy once you've taken all the baseline off the track. And I just wish we had more of that left, because there's no, like, Russia has an infinite amount of land to go back to, right? If people want to go back to the farm.
Right.
In America, we have probably enough, but I mean, sending people for us to go, a lot of us would be a lot happier in villages,
Oh yeah.
right? Much happier, especially if, like, you could earn a village house and then get one when you were older, right, or something, right? And so you could earn a village house so that there would always be a couple in the family. And I know that's a conservative thing, but because a lot of people are they're so socially needy, but they want high stimulation socially stuff. But a lot of conservatives don't. We want quality, not novelty.
That's interesting. That's right.
It turns out it's the math is really simple. I mean, I'm getting halfway through it and I realized, oh, the French already did this.
What's that?
They've already stuck people in apartments, and then they've got, the Germans did too. I mean, they stick people in apartments, they zone the apartments for families, right? And people can then just get on a train. They take the train out to the village, basically the rural areas. They spend their weekends out there, their holidays out there, and enough grandmas and grandpas get a house out there that they can go visit grandmas and grandpas. And when they build a house out there in France, I don't know if you paid any attention to difference in international building codes. I do. I'm a nerd. I pay attention to everything. You look at how the French build their houses, and of course they build them to last for a couple of 100 years, right? So they make these smaller houses. They're high quality, and they're well insulated and stuff. And it's very expensive to live in France. I can't recommend it, but a lot of the things they do are quite good. German post-war urban planning was built to make sure families could afford it. And of course, America, we did the opposite, because we didn't want those peasants coming over here with the 3 generations of families living in an apartment, right? We didn't want that. Because what you really want is the maximum number of debtors possible. So you want as many people having to buy as many homes and rental properties as possible. I mean, that's really what happened.
I know, it hurt me though. I didn't know. It's just like, mistakes were made, as they say.
Yeah, that and putting in buses instead of trams, the number of little town I grew up in used to have one, and they took it away. Like tram, I'm like, dude, I went to visit them. I went to a city council meeting. The best thing you could do is put a tram in that goes from the lakefront back to the city center, right? And just have that fucking thing run all day, all summer long. And the tourist quality, because the tourist quality is separated from the downtown to the lakefront
Right.
by a highway. Well, just fucking bring the tram back. What's it going to cost? I mean, you'll fucking make it back in 5 years, and all these little towns used to have these little streetcars, right? And they were fantastic.
So
Anyway,
this would be the 20th century's hyper individualization for gain by certain groups.
Mhm. All right, so we done for the day? We did
But
our.
do you want to do a brief review of the work we pulled?
Yeah, I think so, because I worked on it and I didn't read it. Right?
Okay.
So again, we're working on the fact of, hey, we've made this wonderful outline for what legislation has to look like. And we said, well, it has to consist of propositions that are formatted in this method. Well, so what the hell do those words mean?
Right.
Right. And then once you've said that, you have to say, I haven't quite sure how to organize this better, but so the first problem we have to solve is insurance. So we solved insurance, which is the right to bear arms. The second problem we have to solve is self-determination by self-determined means. What does that mean? Well, we spent the whole day, the whole session. What the hell does that mean? What's the economics of it? And why? And right. And so the only thing I thought that I should do is maybe this last part here. I don't know if I think I typed it, but I'm not sure we covered it. But maybe I should review that text if you think I should. And then I said, well, what are the subjective differences in our demand for interdependence, right? Which is, independence on and then I went through the 5 big questions and explained the reasons, and we showed the before, during, and after. And I think we've answered the question of self-determination is actually a via negativa, right? It's the
surprisingly, I would add.
So correct. We always put things in the positive, but the negative is actually it's freedom from imposition of costs upon you by others, which is basically you're just freedom from criminality. And so we went through all that, the positiva and the negativa. I always bring in the male and female, what the problem is. And then we discussed what is the demand for it, and why, and how this all sort of works together. That's the part. I mean, I don't know if you think I need to read it or not, but and then that was it. And the next step is going to be the same thing for sovereignty, reciprocity. So what I like about doing this is we get down to these basic things, first principles.
Yes.
We get down to first principles of every single property in the law. And this prevents people from playing these freaking word games with it. And we try to avoid the naturalistic fallacy, which isn't that it's your nature. It's not that it's nature. It's that people will retaliate against you if you violate these principles. And violation of those principles means a reduction in cooperation. So what we tend to find is an equilibrium between parasites and producers, and we're always trying to decrease the parasitism in order to facilitate the producers. What happened in the 20th century, because of the Industrial Revolution, is they brought in the false promise that people were oppressed rather than domesticated, and they brought in the false promise of freedom from scarcity, and that meaning that there's no scarcity, people are just oppressed. This is the entire Marxist thing is predicated on this idea of a social good, but there is no social anything. There's just, are you valuable to work with or not? You don't have any claim on each other. There's no us. There's the only us is the groups that decide to cooperate rather than war. And if you're a parasite, warring is the right answer against you.
There's probably a series to be had there. If you're a parasite, there's measures of parasitism, right?
Oh, that's really interesting. This is the positive. This is how we work together. Where's the parasitism? Let's add it here for next week.
Good.
That's tomorrow, right?
Yes, it is.
We're just gonna do that tomorrow. All right, so I might forget what we're saying here. What do I want to put in here? Okay.
All right.
But otherwise, that was a really good day, boss. Thank you.
I'm glad to be here, and we'll look forward to coffee tomorrow. I'm gonna.
You're not gonna make. You're not.
What?
You're not gonna make me breakfast.
I will, but you're gonna make it in time for it to get cold. It's gonna be cold by the time you get here.
Love you, man. Have a good day.
All right, sending you 2 links.
Okay.
Bye-bye.